Hi guys, it's Professor Fernandez here, and I'm here to talk to you about two kind of important things about paragraphs in your English essay, and they are called topic sentence and transitional phrases. This is super important for something like the compare and contrast essay, where you're comparing, contrasting one thing to another, apples to oranges, moon to sun, whatever, whatever. So that's super important. So I want to go over that with you guys. I'm I'm specifically going to say that I'm recording this for my English 1301 students who have to do a compare and contrast essay. However, if you happen to be English 1302 and I've assigned you something that deals with compare and contrast, you can actually use what we're learning for your particular assignment. Just know that I'm talking about their assignment very specifically, but you can still translate the skills and ideas and thoughts to that assignment, whatever assignment I have given you. If you're in my 1301 class, probably in the summer, you're probably not going to compare and contrast Asia versus J as witnesses because we're not doing that case during the summer. So you can still, again, use what we are talking about specifically for my 1301 during the semesters to help you with your work. Okay? Everybody cool? All right, let's get started. I'm going to screen share. I'm not going to use my iPad. I'm actually going to use the screen. So I'm going to be doing a lot of typing. So you're probably not going to see my face as I'm doing this work, but know that I am here. Okay, let's get started here. All right, so you should see on the screen a paper from Jane Doe. Okay, this is actually her name is not Jane Doe, but this is a former student of mine who did this assignment and got a really good grade, did a really great job. I am going to say, I'm going to preface this by saying, my friends, that this isn't 100% great, right? I want to focus on kind of the structure. I want to focus on the topic sentences and the transitional phrases. But if you see something like maybe they did the possessive wrong, or maybe like a sentence is a fragment, note that I probably marked it in their grade. And secondly, we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on the structure, how this particular example is doing their transitional phrases and their topic sentences compared to their thesis. Okay, so that's what we're looking at for this. I also want to look at their particular Jane Doe's particular works cited page. The works cited page is a mess. So I want to show you how to fix it, how to format it correctly, because that could be something that could still be very much something that could confuse you. We're working in the Word document. So a lot of the things I'm doing is going to be in Word. So not necessarily, if you're using Google Docs, it could be a little bit different. So I recommend that you Google how to do things. If you're working on your works cited and you're trying to figure out how to do the hanging indents, there's actually an add-on through Google Docs that you can use that does it all automatically for you. I don't recall the name of that at the moment. I actually got that idea from a former student of mine who said, no, there's an actual app for that. And they told me, and it was amazing, and I recommend it. I just don't remember what the name of it is. So you're going to have to do what? Google. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to start here with this title. And I think this title is really great. I'm a big proponent of titles. I'm a big proponent of two things, titles and thesis statements. Or no, actually titles and introductory paragraphs. I'm a big proponent of having them written last because the title kind of gives the reader or grader, i.e. me or anybody else who's grading or reading this, kind of an idea of what to expect. It's the first kind of introduction to what is in store. So you've got to think about this, right? Think if you're looking at a movie and you kind of want to get the context of what's going on so you can go ahead and enjoy the movie, that's that that prologue, especially in books, that prologue, that's what the title is. So you want to make sure you have a really good title. This is a good basic title. I know what she's going to do. She's going to compare and contrast Asia McClain and Jay Wilds as witnesses in this case. So I'm good with that. I'm cool. It doesn't have to be punny. It doesn't have to be great. I mean, but it can't be compare and contrast essay. That cannot be your title ever. Never, ever do that, ever. Okay, so I want to look at her particular thesis. So Jane Doe did a really good thesis. I would have personally would have shifted it around a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with how she did it. Of course, you know, as you guys have all been graded before at this point of the semester, I hate the word and the phrase due to. I like the word, I like just use because, but because due to the fact that she's using this at the beginning of a sentence, she made the right choice using due to. So I didn't mark this here. So let's look at this particular thesis, right? She has a really good intro. And I want you to look at this intro. I'm not going to read it to you. I just want you to look at the length of this intro. You notice where the thesis statement is? Yes. And you notice how she gets to the thesis statement, right? I lose it whenever the thesis is the only thing in the intro, right? The intro introduces the paper. So I could do another video on introductions really easily if you would like me to. Please let me know if you want me to do that. But it just introduces it. And so she just talks about the case and kind of gives context to this. And she says, due to and despite the reasonable amount of doubt in both witnesses, the limited evidence, and the handful of secondary witnesses, Jay Wild's testimony is more useful to the case than that of Asia McClain. Okay. So it does all the things that the thesis is supposed to do. It names a winner, it kind of tells you, despite this, despite all these things, despite all this is the winner, right? And it gives me 3 reasons why it's the winner. Reasonable doubt of both witnesses, right? And I'm going to go ahead and highlight some of this. The limited amount of evidence and the handful of secondary witnesses. Let's do blue. Okay, so you see how this particular thesis has all the pieces that you need, right? As 1, 2, 3. Now, again, if you go and look at other resources online, it will tell you that the thesis for the compare and contrast essay is a little different. And it's not that it's wrong. It's not wrong. I prefer you writing your thesis this way because I want you to understand the structure, right? And the structure is very important. As you remember from the lesson, thesis, structure, brainstorming, these are the foundations of this essay. You mess with one of those, this essay falls apart. Okay, so let's talk about this first thing, the yellow section. So whenever I'm going to talk about the topic sentence and transitional phrase of a particular essay, I'm going to use their corresponding color. So that way you understand how it all comes together, okay? Now, I also want you to understand and see that yellow, green, blue, that's the order that this particular paper will be talking about things. So Jane Doe is talking about reasonable amount of doubt first. She's also going to talk about the limited evidence second, and the handful of secondary witnesses third, right? So what you should see, if this is structured correctly, is all the yellow together, all the green together, all the blue together in that order, okay? So if she's done it correctly, spoiler alert, she has. That's what you should see. Okay, so let's talk about a topic sentence. A topic sentence is like a sentence that tells the reader, this is the first thing I'm going to talk about. So at this point, when you're writing here and you're putting things together, right, and you've done your structure, you've decided which structure you're going to use. This particular structure is the point by point. You are saying, all right, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the reasonable amount of doubt in both witnesses, but you're going to do it academically. You're not going to say it like that, right? So let's look at this. First, and it's the first sentence of the paragraph. The topic sentence is always the first sentence of the body paragraph, okay? So here you have, first, there is reasonable doubt from both sides regarding McLean's and Wilde's credibility. Does this say this, but in a different way? Reasonable amount of doubt both witnesses? Yes, it absolutely does. So we're going to go ahead and make that topic sentence yellow. All right. So this topic sentence actually has a they call it, I think, transitional phrase, transitional phrase, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But she says first. So usually when you have a phrase like this, you have a comma right after it. So you could say, to begin, comma, there is considerable doubt. Like those types of phrases kind of like puts things in order. To begin, then, next, those type of things. Those go at the beginning of the sentence, and you want a comma right after it because they're kind of introductory kind of clauses type of things. So that's what you want. So she said first, the first thing I'm going to talk about is this. And so she says first, there is considerable doubt from both sides regarding McLean and Wilde's credibility. Jane Doe could have easily said, could have just used this wording right here and called it a day. She went the extra step, which is why she got such a great grade here, and just said it, but in a different way. You can very much say first, there is reasonable amount of doubt from both witnesses, period, and keep going, and you would be fine. So either way is fine. If she just took this phrase and put it here instead of writing all this, it would be fine. Okay. So that's why, again, why your thesis is important, making sure the wording is correctly, because that's kind of like a little inside, like you can just copy and paste and keep it going. That's perfectly fine. I've seen them both ways. The whole point is that you're telling your reader that this is the first thing I'm going to talk about. This is what this paragraph is going to say. I'm going to discuss this, right? So if you read on, you have all these wonderful things she's talking about. The next sentence, many have suggested that one or the other is lying in some way. And then she starts talking about McLean first, right? Two of McLean's former classmates at Woodland High School claimed years later that she would lie about her testimony. And she got this particular information from the Fenton article, right? And it's listed in her works cited page. It is also possible that her unwavering belief in Syed's innocence might have influenced her telling in the story, at least in more recent trials. Then there's the question of why she came forward. Some people, including the aforementioned former classmates, insisted that she did it for attention, except she shared information this in 2 letters privately. Shared this information. See how I'm saying like this? I'm fixing it because it bothers me. See how I'm saying like there's little things, right? Privately, others have suggested that Syed's family and close friends might have put her up to it, which seems unlikely, especially considering McLean, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so all of this is about McLean, right? I'm going to color this a different color. I'm going to color this. Have I used pink yet? No, I have not. Pink, right? So I'm looking at her thing. She doesn't really say that she's going to talk about McLean first. Actually, she does. She doesn't, actually. She kind of hinted that Jay would be first, then McLean, but looking at the structure of the sentence and what she's saying, she's going to use McLean first. So I'm going back and looking at structure here, right? Just as an aside, because this is still topic sentence and transitions. So she has this topic sentence and then she's talking about Asia. Boom, right? I personally would have liked more in-text citations. You want to cite more than you need to, because what you don't want is a hint of plagiarism. Those plagiarisms get automatic zeros. No ifs, ands, or buts, no explanations. Like it's a zero. Unless you can show me that it's not, it's a zero, right? So I would rather you oversight than undercite. And so she cited here. I wish she would have cited more here, okay? So then we have here, on the other hand, when it comes to deciphering Wallace's testimony, things involve a bit less of conjecture. I can't read today, apparently. Okay, so here is your transitional sentence here with a transitional phrase. Why is this a transitional sentence or a transitional phrase? Because you have the contrasting phrase here. I talked about Asia, da 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 da, but on the other hand, or in contrast, or something else, right? Or similarly, if we're comparing. So she's telling me right here, I've talked about Asia and her like witness testimony, right? And then now I'm going to contrast it to Wilde's, because I'm arguing here that Jay's testimony is more useful than McLean's testimony. So I'm going to talk about Asia, but then I'm going to contrast it to Jay because I think Jay is probably telling the truth here, right? So on the other hand, is the phrase that you want to use here. You can say in contrast is another phrase they could use. The whole point is that you're not comparing here, you're contrasting. And at this point, you're probably asking, well, at what point do I compare them? This is one of those sticky wickets with this particular essay. Just the juxtaposition of McLean and Wilde's, or the juxtaposition of an apple and an orange. Just the fact that you're putting them together in this one paragraph means you're comparing already, right? Because you're already saying they're both witnesses just by putting them in here. So now all you have to focus on is actually writing the contrast of it. And that's kind of this weird thing. So, which is another reason why I teach the thesis that way. Okay. So we have, on the other hand, when it comes to deciphering Wallace's testimony, things are a bit of a less conjecture. You can say, in contrast, Wallace's testimony seems straightforward, right? And so then you talk all about him right here, right? So this right here is J, and J is going to be another color, but it's going to be dark, apparently. Okay, so J. So what we have here, and the reason again why I use colors is so that we know where things are. So we have reasonable doubt. Is this paragraph about reasonable doubt of both witnesses? Yes, it is. And so we have that, and there is indeed a topic sentence and a sentence with a transitional phrase where you're going to say, despite this, or on the other hand, or in contrast, right? It's there. Now, again, this particular essay is a point by point. So point by point. If you are using the other structure, you will have to do the same thing. You will have to do the same thing. Okay. So here's this, it's pink and it's blue. So we also, as we're going, want to make sure that pink is, oh, wow, look at that. Pink is McLean and blue is J. And I totally did boy and girl and I didn't even know I was doing it. Wow, look at my bias. Okay, sorry. It was not what I wanted. Okay, well, we're here. All right, so now we're looking at the next paragraph. Let's look at it. There is a notable lack of evidence in this case for either side. Okay, so this one's talking about lack of evidence. Let's go back to the thesis. The second thing she is going to talk about is the limited evidence. Oh my gosh, it's almost word for word. Lack of evidence on either side. Yep, that's green. Let's go ahead and make that green. So now this says, I'm going to talk about lack of evidence for both of these bad boys here. Right. And so she talks about McLean's testimony, McLean, There's a question whether it actually means anything in the case. The primary evidence of this case, She keeps talking. There are many elements that corroborate Wallace's story. Okay, right here. If she's talking about McLean this entire time, I'm going to give you a second to kind of speed read right quick. And your answer is yes, she is talking about McLean. So we're going to do pink for her. My bias, sorry. And so she's putting all the pink together. All of McLean is together. So what we have here now, what should be here is a transitional phrase that tells us she's about to talk about Wilds, right? So let's read it. There are many elements that corroborate with Wilds' story. Most of the people called on Syed's phone were Wilds' friends, and many of the calls pinged towers near locations in the case, notably Lincoln Park, which is where Lee's body was found in the home of a friend of Wilds. But there are several discrepancies. Okay. I know you're confused. First and foremost, this is a run-on sentence, okay? Again, I picked a paper that's not perfect because no one is perfect. And you guys aren't perfect and I am not perfect. So I wanted to pick a paper that's not perfect, but did really well with the structure, right? This is one of those things. It's not that perfect. This is a long sentence. Well, it's not a run-on. It's not a run-on sentence. It's not a run-on sentence because everything, she's not moving from one topic to another. It's all about the same topic. It's just long. Yet another reason why I don't like semicolons. It's your life. You can use them if you want, but use them correctly. So it's long. So is there here a transitional phrase that tells us that we're moving on, that she's contrasting Wilds' story to McLean's story? I'll let you read that again to see if you can see and point it out. There is, and it's at the end. I personally would have flipped this. And I would have said, although, what did she say about McLean? Although there's lack of evidence with McLean, there are also several discrepancies with Wilds' story, right? At this point, she's actually comparing in this sentence, right? So there is, the phrase is just long. and it's at the end. So you know what I'm going to do to help you guys out is I'm going to rewrite here. So that way you understand kind of what's going on here. So what she is saying here, wait. Okay. So this is what she is saying, what Jane Doe is saying, right? Although Asia has several discrepancies in her story, mainly that her story can't be proved, oh bless, proven. Jay's story also has some points that don't make sense. However, parts of his story can be proven, right? So that's what she is saying here in a weird sort of roundabout way. So that's the rewrite. So yeah, this topic actually goes with the thesis here, right? So then she talks about Jay. While some of the calls match up time-wise, some do not. Others, incoming calls, which have no time name attached, leaving them a mystery. In addition, the locations acquired from the cell phone towers are proven to be reliable in terms of physical evidence, yada, yada, yada. And so she keeps talking about Jay and his story. There he goes. And is she still talking about Jay? Yeah, she is. So blue, right? So you see how this is forming together. So you're going to have topic, your first thing you're talking about, or your first person you're talking about. Then you're going to have a transitional phrase with a transitional phrase with sentence to talk about the other side, whether you're comparing or contrasting, and then the other side. Then you're going to talk about your second thing in your thesis with a topic sentence. Oh, wow. I made that the wrong color. And then you're going to write about your person. You see how it's pink and then it's blue. So it's Asia, then Jay, right? Again, structure, structure, structure. Let's go to the last one. Finally, there's an obvious point about secondary witnesses. Let's go back to thesis. Whew. The thesis. The third and last thing she's going to talk about is the handful of secondary witnesses. So does she deliver on that promise? Oh my God, yes, she does. So Jane Doe, 3 for 3, right? So that's there. Obviously, she's talking about McLean. Da, 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 da. Let's go here to the next thing, the transitional sentence here with the transitional phrase. In Jay Wild's testimony, on the other hand, there are several witnesses. So here's where she's going to contrast Jay's testimony here. And she has a phrase, on the other hand. Okay, yep. So all this is Asia, all this is Jay, and she's done. And then she has a very, very long conclusion, which is actually really good. So there you go. There is the structure of this paper. I'm going to go back and kind of let you see the colors here. And I'll fill in these colors here for you so that you kind of see how it functions. And I also want you to see kind of like the length of things too, right? So that you understand how your paper should flow. So do you see how she moves in yellow, green, and blue, right? So this is why I had you guys do the structure assignment. So that way you understand that, all right, I'm going to talk about this first. I'm going to talk about this second. I'm going to talk about this third. Then she was consistent and she did Asia. She talked about Asia first and then Jay Wild second, right? What you don't want is in your body paragraphs, switch the order because this paper is very, very structured. So if you're going to talk about Asia first, then you're going to talk about Asia first in all your body paragraphs. You're not going to switch them. And so that's what she did. She made sure that she talked about Asia first and then Jay second. And in between talking about Asia and Jay, she has a transitional phrase with a sentence that tells and signals to the reader that she's about to switch to the next person. Either she's going to compare or she's going to contrast, right? And that's what she's going to do. And you see that she does this every single time. This is long because I wrote something, but every single time. So when you are writing your particular essay or rewriting your particular essay, this may be helpful to you to put these in, put the colors together, right? And to point out, oh, I don't have a transitional phrase here. I'm going to have to write one. How do I transition from J to Asia, or Asia to J, or J's first interview to J's 15th interview, whichever assignment you decided, right? I want to go through and look at the works cited because it's a hot mess. The works cited is a hot mess because there is no hanging indentation. All right. So what I would like to do is show you how to do this. Right. So this is correct. You want to write works cited. It's not works cited colon. It's not works cited in 20-point fonts, in bolded, underlined, different colors. Do not use Comic Sans. She did it exactly right. Okay. So what we need to do here is highlight this and do a right click. And what you want to do after you right click, you're going to go to paragraphs. And you see here where it says special under the indentation section, it says special. You're going to click on that and hit the word hanging because you're going to do a hanging indent. Then you're going to hit OK. Ooh, and something weird will happen. Okay, so something weird will happen. So obviously she's got formatting problems here with the original. Yes, she has formatting problems. And this is why you do not use, I don't know what happened here. You do not use spaces because then it does a funky thing, right? See all this? She used spaces in between where she needed to do things instead of using a hanging indent, right? So there's a space here, there's a space here, there's space here, and all this stuff. So I would have to fix it. Well, she would have to fix it and then resubmit it. I think which is what she ended up doing, right? So you see how that comes together like that. So that's what you want to do. You want to do a hanging indent. Do not add extra spaces because then you have this weird thing happening, right? I can go through things to make sure that these are okay. And for the most part, they're fine, except with the word accessed. I don't care when you access this work. I really don't care. I kind of take them out. And for the most part, they're not bad. For the most part, they're not bad. You always want to italicize the publication, right? And do that. Okay. I don't know what's going on here. All right. So that's pretty much it. I hope that worked and helped. Ooh, see, don't do that. Don't do the spaces, guys. Gosh, there it goes. That's what it's supposed to look like. Dun, da, 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 works cited. And this particular person had 3 sources. You can have more. You probably should have more. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it wasn't too terribly long. I wanted to go through and kind of really zero in on the topic sentence and the transitional sentences with the transitional phrases. Transitional phrases are everywhere. Like that's there's some in the book, some in Little Seagull. You can literally go to Little Seagull, type in transitional phrases, and they will give you a list of transitional phrases. And so I hope that was helpful. If you're not in my 1301 class, you don't have Little Seagull. So just email me and I will send you some stuff. And that's it. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that helped you kind of understand how visually it all comes together. Compare and contrast, they ride or die by your brainstorming. The better the brainstorming, the better the paper. By your thesis, understanding the thesis and the fact that the thesis is going to completely impact your structure. Not so much whether you decide it's point by point or the other one. It just tells or informs the structure in that it informs the order of how things are going to be handled. Okay, so I hope that helps, and let me know how I can help. Bye.